everybody. I am Eric McLeod.
And I'm Chris Holden.
And you are listening to LowBlowRadio podcast. And it is Wednesday, January 20th. And we're going to bring you our blow-by-blow of AEW's Dynamite. That's what we watched tonight. Keeping up with everything going on in the AEW world, as well as the peripherals in the world of AEW, because they've been connected to other places as well moving forward here. But tonight was a very AEW-centric evening, and we kicked off with some classic AEW stuff, celebrating young Negative One's birthday.
Yeah, Dark Order taking on the Chaos Project. Slight foreshadowing, I suppose, last week with Luther yelling at the Dark Order guys. And it was the Dark Order along with Hangman Adam Page, who had been forced into a position tonight where he was going to be answering, "Will you join the Dark Order?" And so it was John Silver and Alex Reynolds and Colt Cabana along with the Hangman taking on Serpentico, Luther, Jack Evans, and was it Angelico was the fourth guy?
Yep, TH2 teaming up with the Chaos Project to go against Dark Order and Hangman in this opening match. And all around real stellar performance. Really, like I say, it's interesting to see this other side of Dark Order guys. And so we know Colt can work face. We were seeing that early on in AEW and seeing more heel stuff from him lately. But to seeing that different side, even the commentators putting over this new sort of side of Reynolds and Silver, that's sort of been bolstering over the last few months and stuff like that, really showcasing in this matchup and really getting a lot out of them, as well as TH2 and Chaos Project. But they all worked kind of fairly well together in this. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I thought it was a good match. We got a lot through the night of reset mode almost, which to be expected after the last couple of weeks of like bigger shows where it was a lot of name talent and made guys on the card versus your undercard guys, right? Yeah. And which no problem with that whatsoever, because all of the guys can work on that they have on the show, and we've seen a lot of these guys now at least several times on Dynamite. You've probably seen them lots more on Dark. So yeah, I thought it was a good opener, a fun match, and again because it was celebration for Negative One's birthday and the way they let him play in there as well. Yeah, and I loved his promo at the end. It was very Brody. He needed to get to drop an F-bomb in there. It would have been perfect.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no getting to toss the papers and it seemed very Brody-like in that moment, and then hitting them off with the kendo stick and getting the cake moment. As soon as there's a cake, it's wrestling. Someone's going into that cake.
Someone's eating that cake, not in a nice way.
Someone's eating that cake, and usually in something bad, and it was good for Luther to take that bump. No, I think everyone kind of had their place in this matchup, and as much as the match itself was sort of written on the wall, you knew Dark Order was going to go over, obviously with Brody's or Negative One's birthday being the sort of caveat for this match and that sort of thing. The other sort of pressure on this match was to see whether Hangman Page was going to officially join the Dark Order. He had told the guys last week he was going to give them a final answer on the question they've been asking for months and months and months, to see if he would finally join up with the crew. And that was something else we sort of thought was written on the wall, and turns out to be a little bit different, at least for the time being.
Yeah, especially with the way they finished the match in such tandem chemistry there and in sync. I thought for sure we were going that route, but no, just as John Silver drops to his knee and proposes to Hangman to join the group, and the celebration begins as Hangman goes to answer because they just assumed, like we did, he was going to join. I thought that was hilariously fantastic.
Yeah, no, that
Hangman
was great.
Says, "No, I can't do this. I've been part of the team, the gang thing before, and it didn't work out well for me." So he grabbed his celebratory bottle of scotch and he left up the heel ramp, which I thought that was interesting as well.
Yeah, so you can see an interesting sort of different side to Hangman that we haven't quite seen in this storytelling here. You sort of felt for him in this moment as well, but yeah, you weren't sort of sure going forward. It seemed more so that he was going to be teaming up with the Dark Order, maybe this sort of other band of misfits that have sort of lost their way, as well as he had with the Elite, all kind of getting together and maybe finding something that worked. And maybe that's where we're headed down the road, and we're just not quite there yet. But we also understand his trepidation with joining up with the team. But yeah, certainly a lot of heartbreak there on poor John Silver and Alex Reynolds' face, and more to come, I'm sure.
A lot. And actually, do me a favor. Can you go through the footage? Because you can pinpoint the moment when his heart actually breaks. He put that picture up in the
I'm,
thing.
I'm sure it exists. Yes, this poor John Silver.
Next up, we have Marvez with Y2J and MJF in the back talking about the big main event for tonight, which will see the Inner Circle explode into 3 tag teams with their 6-man to take on each other to determine which will be the tag team that will go for the tag team titles in AEW. Yeah, MJF tells Marvez his breath smells like rats having an orgy in a running microwave. I have no idea what that smells like, but I'm sure it's bad. And
yeah,
it was hilarious. It made me laugh anyway.
I know, at least with that description, I don't need to know what that smells like. No, thank you. But yeah, terrible description there. Poor Alex Marvez always getting a bit of the grunt of things here, but a good interview package getting over the working relationship between MJF and Chris Jericho going forward here. It's certainly leaning into as things were to come with the main event as well. Interesting placement for this, as well as showcased as it was last week. I wasn't sure where they would have it on the card, but you can say you lay this one out, and it definitely seems like the one that most suited for the main event.
Well, yeah. By the time you look at the card in total, it was the only one with all sides of the match were
enough stakes and enough
main
stars.
event players, right?
Yeah.
So, I also, I love the storyline aspect of all of this. MJF going on very much on the lines of, "Are we sure this is going to cause some friction with the guys?" That he wants nothing more than to break up. So that excellent weasel aspect.
But he's making it their decision, not his kind of thing. He can always turn it back on them, kind of thing. Yeah, it's a very good little workings going on from MJF and Jericho going forward here. We next had Tony Schiavone in the ring, inviting out Sting and Darby Allin, saying that Sting had a message that he had for Darby Allin to congratulate him or celebrate him with his TNT title victory last week. And we get all the hoopla about their entrances, and they both come get into the ring. We get Sting trying to get onto the mic and lay in a bit of some courteous stuff on Darby. I'm not really sure where it's going, but it doesn't matter where it's going because Taz is tired of hearing Sting's voice. He doesn't like the snow, and he doesn't like the sound of Sting's voice either.
Yeah, cuts in. For some reason, we got to hear more Taz's voice instead. So the got more of Taz putting over himself and his street creds and the street cred of his gang. Yes. And Sting, while they were gentlemen, Sting attacked Ricky Starks last week as if Ricky wasn't about to interfere in the match or on the turnbuckles interfering in the match literally when that happened. We'll pretend that isn't the reason why Sting got in there. And challenges them to a street fight. And Darby says, "Be careful what you wish for." So I guess we got a street fight coming up. I guess this will be Sting AEW actual debut. A great way to protect him, to put him in a non-wrestling match and a tag team match on top of that.
For sure. Yeah, if that's the case. Or
it seems inevitable at this point, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Whether it's the, I guess if you have the 3 men of Starks, Hobbs, and Cage, they maybe need another member to kind of join the crew and even the numbers out once again. Or if they do it in handicap style, it's hard to say. I feel like that doesn't benefit the Team Taz necessarily. Like to keep the numbers fairly even if the good guys are going over in that sense. And obviously not going to have Sting lose if it's the first kind of competition type deal. You would hope not.
I would tend to agree with that. Yeah.
You're paying him this much money. You're probably not paying him that much to lay down either. So I would imagine he's in there to swing the bat and have as much fun in a street fight. And they've shown they can have good fun street fights too. They have enough play in the Daly's Place area and surrounding stuff that whether it was the backstage brawl things that they've done or the street fight with Santana and Ortiz and the Best Friends, they've been able to pull off some fun stuff. So curious to see what continues on with that feud. Darby just can't seem to get away from Team Taz.
Well, you've got Ricky Starks, who's an excellent worker. He's proven himself to be technically very sound, very entertaining, but solid in the ring. I think he can go well as a matchup with Sting. And he's a young guy who's going to get a big rub just from being in the ring with Sting. He doesn't need to beat him. And just put on a good show with him, and I think he will. And then Brian Cage, who's got that size and the strength that he can physically, literally protect Sting through a big match. Give him some good moves, but gently do it with him through it, right? And he's got Darby there to play with when he wants to get rough, and he needs to be able to just throw a guy around for a while. Well, here's Darby Allin, toss him about a bit. He loves it.
No, I think if you were going to find a better people to sort of team him up with for this first sort of introduction, that it makes the most sense. Darby to take the bumps and those guys to be the best kind of workers heel wise for him to be working with right now. So yeah, we'll see what happens moving forward. We also had Alex Marvez was all over the place tonight. We got the interviewers letting us know that we just thought we were going to be catching the Young Bucks, who were meeting up with Kenny Omega. We thought maybe just a video package, but this at least got the kayfabe over that the cameras were there, as much as they didn't make a ton of sense that they walked into Kenny's backyard and Alex Marvez was just standing there behind the fence. I don't know how he gets in or where he gets to these places. I feel like that's a whole other show they could be making, where it's Alex Marvez gets into weird places and waits for interviews. But
hey, he's a reporter. That's what they do.
Fair enough. No, there's a whole world that I don't understand. But that whole aside, he's asking the Young Bucks, curious what they're doing here at Kenny's house for some sort of secret meeting of the elite to sort of sort out what's going on with all the sort of misunderstandings of last week with who was going to be competing in the elite match and that kind of stuff. And it didn't seem like this meeting went as they planned either.
No, they get into the house. Nakazawa greets them at the door, takes them through to the room where they will meet with Kenny, and they're met with a stark, enormous painting, oil painting on the wall, adorning the one side, which kind of odd.
Just a bit, yeah.
Kenny Omega with like low cut jeans on his thumb and his one of his loops, with his abs looking pretty flex and taut. Standing right behind him on his shoulder is Don Callis in the painting with his shirt off and a chiseled physique, which I'm not quite sure would match if Don did take off his shirt.
No, I'm not.
And his pants were a lot lower cut than Kenny's too.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was just a height differential thing or a waist thing, but yeah, they were very low cut jeans. There were some solid abs on these this painting. I'm sure.
He's cut, man.
I'm gonna have it here between us.
Right on. Yeah, Don's cut. We can see that, right? So.
Oh, absolutely.
It's hilarious. I laughed my ass off. I thought that was just priceless. And then while the Bucks are admiring the painting, for lack of a better word, Don Callis himself came into the room. Not Kenny, though, because Kenny's busy in his own house. He's busy. He can't come out in his own house and meet you. And Don has to explain gently to the Bucks that Kenny doesn't want to be your friend anymore. You're holding him back. So, I'm family. This isn't just friendship here. And
sorry,
you guys have got to go. So he tries to pay him off. The Bucks are insulted at the offer of money for their 12-year friendship. And they allude to the fact that they're advancing on Don, and he suggests by his cowardly screams that he's being roughed up or about to be beaten up. And then the next time we see Don, he has a black eye. Now, we don't know for sure that they did beat the shit out of him in the house, right? So
yeah, that's something.
Is there a chance that this is a swerve coming up?
Well, I think it obviously seems like it's always the way in wrestling, unless you see it happen before your eyes, that you're never sure if something really happened or not. But again, if that is leaning into the fact that the Bucks have been unpredictable over the last couple of months too, even leading up to winning the belts, breaking Tony's phone or kicking Alex Marvez, and so they've been prone to this sort of random behavior before. Maybe that's why they were doing that stuff, to sort of make you feel that they would be more known to this kind of situation. It's something I wanted to go back and rewatch because I'd like to know how the camera got in the setup. I sort of was paying attention to Don kicking everybody out, but I couldn't quite remember how if it was something that he had.
Yeah, he took the camera. Yeah. He took the camera from the cameraman and said, "You take take this guy to the dungeon as well. You don't get to film in Kenny's house."
Yeah.
But he didn't explain why he left the camera on record and positioned it to be filming them, and then said, "Okay, boys, now we're in private."
I would assume in the invisible hand plotting of things that he would know that the Bucks would be insulted by the money and that they would come at him in some way and that he could make it look like he was being attacked. In my mind, that's how it feels like it was being played out. But
it can certainly go that way. It'll make a lot of sense if they do say that ends up being the plot, that he set that up and staged the whole scene to make it look like they attacked him. because otherwise it will look like sloppy work by him that he put the camera in a spot where it didn't get the attack if they really did beat him up. So yeah, I get the feeling he either self-inflicted that, or maybe he got some help from the Good Brothers to make himself look like he'd been beaten right before he met up with Kenny.
Absolutely. I feel like more of these will sort of play out over time. Again, maybe something like that, the reveal that it was him all along. That
it was me, Austin. It was me all along.
Well, I feel like, again, the little seeds of this being planted here and now, it puts it in your mind that you're going to say, how is it not that Don Callis is the one that took Hangman's phone all those months ago, right? And sent that horrible text to the Bucks. Like, obviously, he'd been hanging around at other times, I would imagine. At this point, it makes the most sense that it was Don Callis that took that phone, and that's
exactly
will be the reveal.
Yeah, it certainly makes more sense than anybody else if that were to be the reveal today, tomorrow, right? Next week's BTE, for example, for sure. Right now, there's no better way to go with that story. So
for sure, and a nice little red herring that's been left, wait in the waits that we're waiting to see how that plays out.
It's these kind of things being left hanging. I feel like this is left hanging deliberately as something that will be brought back eventually and come into play. It's not left hanging like the white Hummer. Who was driving that Hummer? No, that's gone. Fucking forget the Hummer. We're not supposed to forget the phone. When they bring that back up, it's going to be a real wow moment. So yeah.
For sure. And we can talk about other little things they can leave hanging here at AEW when they come up later on. But no, this seems like a pretty solid, interesting sort of seeds planted here. Moving on match-wise, though, we had Peter Avalon, pretty Peter Avalon. He is known now, no longer the librarian, no longer telling you to shush as he makes his way to the ring to take on Cody Rhodes in a pretty decent singles match between these two. Started off with a bang with Cody hitting the crossroads right out of the gate. You thought maybe it was going to be just a quick squash. A solid matchup that way, and then Jade Cargill's music hits, a bit more distractions, kind of endure, and then hey, I just had to get to it. We got a low blow. You got to bring it up when it happens. Bit of a turn for Peter Avalon in the matchup, but then doesn't quite sway enough in his favor. But a bit of a back and forth here between Cody and Peter.
Yeah, a much better match for Avalon than I was anticipating. I thought when it started off with the crossroads, it was going to be a quick 1, 2, 3. And pleasantly surprised by him. He's come a long way since the last time I think we saw him on Dynamite, which I couldn't even tell you when that was. But I know I've seen him before wrestle on there, and this felt a lot more like he was in place. So yeah, enjoyed it. Maybe that's a character change thing as well, because he was a librarian the last time. So
well, I think this was again maybe a conversation you and I had on off air at one point when we were talking of the AEW anniversary thing when it was coming up. The librarian character was always something I felt never really got more of a explanation as to why it existed, why they had brought it up with the whole hoopla that it existed with BTE, where in the end it felt like, can we just use this odd strange gimmick to help our friend Peter Avalon get over in a different sense? Whereas and in a way it worked. You know who Peter Avalon is now. Again, you said I can't remember the last time I'd seen him on Dynamite, but you still remember who Peter Avalon the librarian is, even if this is your first introduction to him as pretty Peter Avalon. So if that's all the explanation the experiment of the librarian needs, then sure, I get that. It just seems a weird way of going about it, but that's wrestling, and it's not always going to be all the same. So but no, I maybe that is it too. Maybe he just feels a little bit more like himself. This is more the character Peter did in the indies and stuff like that. So not trying to be, and again, the librarian, all it was the shush thing. And I find if it's a little character thing, not that he didn't do it very well, but it's very, he had to make sure he was doing it every match, and it was very, playing to the character. And maybe this is just something that's more natural.
It's a lot more generic. It's a lot easier. But they don't have a lot of that generic base character, and there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, like it's pro wrestling. Again, don't overcomplicate every single thing. If every character is 17 layers deep and rich and developed, then nobody is. So you need a few of that base ones to make somebody that isn't base look not base.
For sure. And at this moment right now, I can't think of any other people using that. Sure there are that use the I'm handsome gimmick or whatever, right? Like the thing that Tyler Breeze used to do, and Cody's had that moments in his career as well. So it's not something that people haven't played out. Something like Rick Martel back in the day. So it's a gimmick that's been well utilized. But again, they're not using that right now in AEW with anybody, so it works for Peter to utilize those and play it out in the moments. I thought that was a great way. As much as the match itself was playing really well, it utilized the characterness in the very end there when he was locked in that figure four, slapped Cody for that final sort of like way to get out of this maneuver. And then when Cody's like, well, you slapped me, I got to slap you back. And he's like, no, I'm just going to tap. I don't want to get slapped in the face. I'm like, that's great. That plays into the character. As much as he was willing to keep continuing in with this fight, he just didn't want to get hit in the face.
I missed, or I couldn't tell if I missed visually the tap out or if it was the position on the camera that we missed the tap out. Because it seemed to me like it was, he flopped back down from it and the ref started calling for the bell. And I thought at first, like, there's no way that was a pin. And then JR was saying, it was JR or Shivani said, he tapped out instead of getting hit in the face.
Yeah.
And I chuckled because, now it makes sense. But I'm like, well, I wish the camera had been right on to make me see that visual and the facial expression and the
For sure. I remember seeing him tap, so maybe it was maybe he's just so pale his hands tend to blend in with his skin or something. But I remember seeing the tap, and maybe it totally could have been an odd angle as well. But no, a good finish, interesting finish, working with that character, and then Cody getting a win. Can't not expect that to happen.
Cody gets wins like he gets action figures.
Exactly. One a week.
Next up, we got the FTR, the number one ranked tag team in AEW in the World Tag Team Championship title rankings. And they were about to cut a promo, but the Jurassic Express cut them off again. Jungle Boy, really, this time, front and center, as he says, I could beat either one of you guys in a singles match.
Yeah, that's what he learned in the ring between the two of them last week, as much as they're the best tag team, and what he had learned from their competition last week is that he thinks he could beat either one of them in a singles competition, and that's what he wanted to challenge them to. And it looked like, was it Dax that stepped up first?
Dax Harwood will take him on next week.
Yeah.
1-on-1.
Just so we can hear that music once again. That's why they got to do it. And a nice way to play into that Luchasaurus wasn't out there last time for the match, because they were it was all about Marco trying to prove himself in the team, and then now him putting himself into the match. Have been saying that we're all going to be out there at ringside, but I'm going to be the one making sure that no one's getting involved, and things are going to be as square as can be. And I think that, again, this is sort of furthering the feud between both these teams. And we're going to see what happens next week between Jungle Boy and Dax.
It's a step up thing, right? I mean, spoiler alert, Jungle Boy's going to win this match next week. And you got it makes perfect sense to have FTR win the tag matches between these two. That keeps FTR strong, keeps them high in the rankings, doesn't hurt Jurassic Express. You don't expect them to beat FTR. I just want to see them put in a good match. In a singles match, Jungle Boy can get that win. Doesn't hurt FTR at all, but it elevates him that much further, and it puts more steam into having the tag matches continue. So I love the booking on this. It just makes perfect sense.
No, I always like that, especially furthering in a feud when you can pull off a good singles match between the two guys. Also going forward, something else they've done in AEW, let me say, it feels like years ago. It was probably just last year, because they haven't been that old, but when they did it with the Bucks and the Lucha Bros, and they pulled off that amazing match with Nick Jackson and Phoenix, where it was just a great singles match where you knew it was between these two tag guys, where we could pull two great singles dudes out of that and get a great competition out of them. So I'm assuming that's what we're probably going to get next week, is I think Dax and Jungle Boy could do a real good match. So
I think it's going to be a really good match.
Definitely looking forward to that. Speaking of in-ring matches, Jon Moxley making his in-ring return here in AEW. We've seen him making appearances, but he's finally wrestling as he made his entrance, and then he was taking on someone who has appeared on Dark. You're probably not familiar with Nick Camarado. I'm going to say he's only been around a few times on Dark, as they were mentioning a Nightmare Factory sort of worker, up-and-coming guy, but getting a big shine here on Dynamite against Moxley.
Yeah, JR and Shivani doing a big deal and putting him over on commentary is the only man willing to sign the contract to fight Moxley. Not just like there was nobody else willing. Everybody else ran away, which I suppose includes QT Marshall standing cheering him on, his coach at ringside. He's too cowardly to sign the contract to fight Moxley himself.
And
so he put his young
like,
student in.
You know what? Test yourself, kid.
I had that he looked like a young Bruiser Brody written down on the notebook as my first note from like the first sight of him, and then Shivani or one of them said that early on in the match, like, yes, he does look like a young Bruiser Brody.
That
exactly
wild man
like
hair, yeah.
the hair, the look, everything. It was that to me, that was a really good, appropriate squash match.
Yeah.
You get the exact right level of a guy to squash where it doesn't hurt Nick Comoroto at all. He only can get a rub from appearing on Dynamite. Doesn't matter who his opponent is. The fact that Moxley's squashing him, well, how can you be hurt by the former champ that was undefeated until Omega screwed and beat you when you're a nobody? Of course he does. Like,
yeah.
And the fact that he got to do that offensive where he had Moxley up, and if he wasn't a rookie, wasn't so green, knew what to do, he could have utilized that into making a difference. But of course, he makes a rookie mistake. Moxley takes his back and wins the match for tap out. Yeah, I thought that, to me, that's a perfect fucking enhancement talent match.
No, they've been doing a great way of utilizing the different enhancement guys they have on Dark in different ways. And Comoroto's been one of those guys that the more matches you see with him on Dark, that's the way they utilize him, is those sort of he gets a lot of his shit in, and it's more about how the other guy overcomes that. Like the match he literally just had yesterday on Dark was against Scorpio Sky, and it was a very similar type of matchup where this guy was getting a ton of that kind of stuff in, but how was Scorpio going to deal with this like slightly bigger, more brawly type opponent, and utilize his moveset in a different type of way to get to the finish, the same way Moxley had to do that. So he's a real good sort of way to utilize that and selling the other guy's offense, but also letting him get his sort of beef offense in as well. So a good I think all around as far as squash or enhancement matches go, pretty decent there from Jon Moxley and Nick Comoroto. Hitting the mic, Jon Moxley amazing on the mic once again, letting Moxley and the Good Brothers know that he's even more so excited that they are here, and everyone else seems to be wanting to come to AEW, whether it's Impact Japan. He's ready for everybody, and if it's the world of wrestling, you got to go through Jon Moxley.
Bring all your Nashville buddies, bring all your Japanese buddies. I love this, the Breaking Bones, the blah blah blah. It's a good Moxley promo.
Yeah,
it is what it's become a standard fare from him now. I felt tonight was almost he felt like a Stone Cold-esque character, and I don't know if that was good or a bad thing necessarily. Like he felt it felt like he's got that extra ring presence and that status, which I guess is a good thing. I just felt like the character was leaning that Stone Coldy way, which I don't know. It could just be a one night thing.
I'm gonna say people have been saying that for years, so I don't know if that's just something you're just finally seeing, or if it just sort of came out a little bit tonight, or if they were mentioning it too much on the commentary. But
I just felt
I've heard those comparisons for quite a while for Moxley, that he is Stone Cold 2.0 basically, right? So but I mean, take it whether you like that or not. I like Stone Cold, so I'm all for another Stone Cold. He ain't out here doing it, so I'm all for that. Another great backstage promo, Eddie Kingston being interviewed about his matchup coming up next week against Lance Archer. Another one that doesn't get to finish the interview though before the opponent decides to interrupt them. Instead, Lance getting right in Eddie Kingston's face, not letting him get a word in edgewise, which no one really seems to ever do against Eddie. These are two big mouth guys who just one just happened to be a lot louder than the other, I think, at this moment.
He didn't even really get to start the promo, let alone finish it. I wondered if this was almost Goldberg McIntyre-esque. Did Lance jump the gun on jumping in, because Eddie had barely got Pac's name out of his mouth, and Lance was in there running into his face, screaming at him about his lines about the Murder Hawk and we all die and you're gonna die, and like, shit, dude, he didn't even say word one about you yet. He literally did not get to you yet. And then Jake got in his face with the extended deal. Like, all right, Jake, come on, move along. So I would have rather heard more from Eddie before they got to the cutoff point. That's all. I really like Kingston. I felt like he really didn't get to say shit.
Oh, fair. Yeah, I don't remember what he said. I felt like they both didn't really say anything, so maybe that was just the point of the promo, and there really wasn't much to be said. They were just sort of leading up to the matchup for next week. I feel more so, as much as we've heard tons from Eddie Kingston, I need a win from Eddie Kingston. I need to see Eddie be more so than just a shit talker on the mic, because then it just leads to how many times can you fucking cry wolf and shit doesn't
No,
happen. I need
agreed.
to, I need to, as much as you want to see more of the talk side of Eddie, I'm all for that too, but I need to see Eddie win a match. So
No, I agree with that too.
I'd rather see that happening if we're talking doing more of the nitpicky side
I
of things
don't.
here. But I thought promo wise, I thought this was good. I liked the way he had brought Jake into things. It seems like they're turning to both of them face, so it seems like they're obviously sort of teetering a little bit more that way. But again, it's not really that way here in AEW. You don't really have a clear cut look at those things, so it's tends to be matchup to matchup.
Yeah, but I definitely agree with you. I just I'm not sure that I see that coming here either against Lance. So for Eddie a win, I still get the feeling that we'll get a spoiled finish in this match next week with Pac interfering, and we still end up with a 3-way match between the three of them, because that seemed to have some traction behind it anyway. Whether this just gets us there, I don't see why we couldn't get there even if this match has a clean finish, to be fair. But then you got a clear winner and a loser out of this.
And it seems like Pac's got other business elsewhere right now anyway, right? So
and now from the end of the show, yeah, he definitely.
Yeah. So and maybe it is just a bit of a muddled thing, depending on where these things are going. I feel like we're finally getting to this matchup that has been built between these two since that Battle Royal, right? We never actually got this singles matchup between two either. So maybe this is the sort of nail in the coffin of all this as well, and we'll sort of see what happens going forward.
It does. I do totally agree with you. I feel like Eddie needs a win, but to back up what he says, but for the same reasons, Lance needs a win too. So you're almost in that spot, and AEW typically don't book those sloppy non-finishes that get them out of these predicaments.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see who they decide to stick into the oven next week, I guess.
True. Yeah, someone's going to probably have to eat that finish here. We'll have to see what happens. So we got Kenny Omega showing up to the arena looking as fancy as ever and heading into Don Callis's locker room, trying to be interviewed by Alex Marvez, interrupting as well, getting a look at Don Callis here, and it looks like he's got a bit of a shiner on his eye.
Yeah, all bruised up and one side or the other. Very red, very ugly looking. Yeah, Kenny notices right away, demanding to know who did this. I'll get him. I'll take care of whoever did this for you. And Don doesn't want to say, I don't want to tell you that it was Matt and Nick Jackson that did that. Oh no. Oh boy, did I let that slip.
And then Marvez just getting right in. Are you saying it was the Bucks that did this? Wait, the Bucks? What were you doing?
Marvez again, yeah.
Is there no peace in this world? Very fun side of Kenny
here. He does super kick for less than anything he did tonight, Marvez. I'm surprised that nobody took a piece out of him this evening. But
he might need to start learning his place a little bit. Yeah, he's certainly he's tested the grounds a little bit here of how intrusive the interviewer can be in these situations. But Kenny seemed obviously distraught by the idea that the Bucks would do this to his best friend Don Callis, his shirtless buddy. Next matchup, we had Top Flight teaming up with Matt Sydal to go against the Hardy Party. Matt Hardy teaming with the Private Party, the new Impact #1 contenders, Private Party.
Yes, after the action from Impact Wrestling on Tuesday night when they defeated James Storm, thank you, and Alex.
Nope, Chris Sabin.
Chris Sabin, that's right. Alex Shelley was out of the match from the other night. Shelley's the one off. They defeated them to become the #1 tag contenders over on Impact Wrestling, along with Matt Hardy's help, who is obviously returning over there. So tonight, the same guys, taking on Sydal and Top Flight. Great match, really. The action and excitement and speed and fluid tag stuff that you come to expect now from an AEW tag match. It's almost like they're setting themselves up for every week, and that the teams go out and do a match and go back and say, beat that next week. And the first time we get a real stinker of a tag match, it's going to really suck. And it's almost, they're getting to that spot now of like a really good match is not going to be as good because such good work week over week, but they keep on doing it, man. So I loved it. I thought this was a really good match.
Great way to utilize young talent and a veteran, as well as a sort of a guy that is sort of like a weird progression in his career as well with Sydal.
I was going to say both the veterans,
in sort of a different mind, of a bit of a later set, and then a sort of a mid-ranging vet in Sydal as well. So both being able to work uh, varying aspects of the match here together, and certainly getting over the more heel side of the Private Party. They had a match on Dark that got a little bit of that over. It was so crazy to watch that, and then be watching Impact literally moments after, and then have them show up on it like like a Rick Rude type moment there, where you're doing two shows and they pop up and then do so well on that show and are shown as main eventers. Like, they were in the main event on that show, shown in such a high light. And this heel side, as much as they're taking the advice from Matt Hardy, it plays well in the ring too, where they're unsure of it at first, but then when it utilizes and it works well, they're more keen to do more of it, and they adapted more of that, I think, in this match as well, especially leading to the finish.
Yeah, especially at the finish, taking Matt Hardy's chair attack training to the next level, utilizing it. I love the way that Quinn and Cassidy looking at each other. Look, first of all, oh my goodness, I can't believe you did that. It was awesome. That was great. I thought it was really good. Big Money Matt hitting his 3 side effects in a row and going for that 3-3 count cover and getting the triple deuce. That was pretty good.
Yeah. They're certainly getting Hardy over in these matchups too. He's got quite a presence as far as the veteran goes.
It was the ending when they really started to beat down the Top Flight afterwards. Are they making was this a double turn of sorts? I mean, again, as we've said already, you said a few minutes ago, we're not too heavy on the heel and face dynamics in AEW. They exist. There are heels and faces, but you don't necessarily have to take on your enemy because he's a good guy versus you're a bad guy. So, you can find friends or foes regardless of your disposition. But it almost felt like a double switch. Like Private Party, we've been treating as faces for quite a while. And these new young guys were looking at a little bit more heely in the way that they'd been challenging teams and looking brash and not very respectful, maybe. Or maybe that's just the way I took their challenge to the Bucks and stuff. But
I'm gonna say maybe that's that not how I've been reading it. I see it totally as just the heel turn for the Private Party. They were such baby faces before being with Matt Hardy, and now they are quite clearly different.
I mean, this is for them definitely a heel turn. So the other guys, they were always baby facey, still baby face. Oh.
I think they were always, again, I think it's easier in AEW and most places to always tell that babyface story. And the early kind of come up and thing was they told it on the commentary. This was a new team. They're young 19, 20-year-old kids that watched the Young Bucks come up and they wanted to wrestle them. So they chose to wrestle them. I think maybe you're confusing them with the Acclaim. The Acclaim were the more brass.
They were much more
guys that wanted to challenge for the belts and do all that kind of stuff. The Top Flight just wanted to get in there and have a good competition. It wasn't necessarily about definitely they shook the hands. They did all the respectful face stuff. So I'm not really seeing where you see the heel side.
Okay.
They were angry here because obviously they hit the guys with the chair and they wanted to get their comeuppance and that kind of stuff. So I'm just curious where you see them being more heels. That's all.
No, from before I thought the Acclaim were obviously like the Cena-esque rap was a lot more heel, right? But I felt like it was shades of I thought the way Private Party approached the very first match that they had with the Bucks, that was very much the young baby face. Oh my goodness, we're in your presence, whatever. I felt like when these guys did the challenge to the Bucks several weeks back, it felt a little bit more like foreshadowing we're going to try to screw you in this match. Whereas the sneaky nice guy approach, it didn't feel like it was a real reverence. It didn't feel like that to me. I don't remember them actually shaking hands with them either. I thought it was much more of a challenge of, hey, we're here and we're good and you guys may be the champs, but we think we're whatever. It seemed brash. Not as brash as the rapping, but
maybe they're just kind
of a fine line where the heels here don't always every heel in AEW isn't I'm smashing the guy with a chair on the bad guy. There's a lot more subtleties to it. So that's all.
For sure. And again, I'd have to go back and recheck it. In my mind, it felt more like, again, the Young Bucks wanting to do that match, whereas the brash stuff comes more from TH2 and from the Acclaim. Those were the teams that the Young Bucks were more having that type of matchups with coming off of the tag team win. And the Top Flight one was more seeing interest in this young new tag team. But I'm gonna say maybe it's everyone reads wrestling different. It's different for everybody. Great match nonetheless. Another interview segment with the Inner Circle. I can't remember what this was because all I wrote down was Inner Circle.
This MJF came to the back with everybody except for Jericho is back there. He explains to them, Jericho is the leader. You know, if it was up to me, we wouldn't even be doing this match tonight. But Chris wants this, right? So Chris wants this.
Right.
So we're just going to play it cool, and tries to be cool with everybody. But Sammy's not having any of it.
Oh, right. Okay, that was it.
I get the feeling very much that Sammy's the tipping point in this whole thing. He's either, when it comes to him deciding, either he's on board with MJF being part of the group, that's when Jericho gets turfed.
Right.
Or it will be Sammy leaving with Jericho because he just can't stand MJF and he knows that he's been a weasel all along.
Yeah, and I guess I hate to always say this all the time too, but that's probably why I didn't write down more notes. As soon as fucking Sammy comes on the screen, I just stop giving a shit. And I want to care about this angle. I like the Inner Circle. I like all the guys involved in this, but like you mentioning him being the sort of focal point of the sort of story that's also happening here, I tend to just give less and less of a shit. But that's just me personally as a fan, not as a. I think they're presenting the story very well, story wise. But that's just my personal take coming in more so than the show presenting a bad character. I think they're doing fine with Sammy. It's just not for me.
Yeah, that's fair enough. We went to Penelope Ford taking on legit Layla Hirsch at 4th to 11 little package of Dynamite.
Yes.
Nice low center of gravity, and she's definitely strong. Penelope came out with Kip Sabian, the best man, Miro, and Miro's butler, Chuck Taylor.
Yeah, nice way to include all that sort of continuing story from last week as Chuck had lost that match to Miro and now being put in the Butler situation here, and Penelope getting this matchup. It was supposed to be Nyla Rose, which they had announced last week, but I think it was due to COVID or some sort of situations that she was unable to attend.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Not maybe that she is sick. I think in her video she had said she came in contact with somebody. But yeah, we all know the sort of protocols and that kind of stuff, erring on the side of safety, that she was not able to attend this live taping and whatnot, or to fly there. And whatever the case was, Penelope put in the situation. And I think a good a use of Penelope, especially with that story being such a big focal point right now, the wedding and Miro and all that kind of stuff, a good place to utilize her on this card.
Yeah, and it did feel mostly like it was a mechanic for the Chuck and Miro bit, but so be it. It was fine. It was a good match. Sabian holding Layla's foot down for the finish to allow Penelope to get the pinfall. But Hirsch put on a really good show. I thought she had a good match. Penelope's always been good. Every match we've seen with Penelope in it has been fine. It feels bad in a way that she's relegated to this ringside valet spot when she's a talented worker.
Yes, it feels a bit like the Bunny situation too, where you forget that they're actually really good workers. Like when Ali started,
we never get to see her,
Brandy,
right?
You never got to see her wrestle before that, and then all of a sudden you saw her with Brandy, and it was like, oh wait, she can actually wrestle and get in there and do some real shit. And yeah, you sometimes forget that with Penelope. And I'm gonna say a little bit of I can say where maybe just not being in the ring as much, sort of greenness showing for me a bit in this match, but Layla certainly on point, keeping things rolling here. I don't know if my mind was just again elsewhere with them talking so much about the wedding and all this other kind of stuff built up to that sort of thing going forward, where I'm just like, is there no bachelor party anymore unless they're doing that next week? There was no announcement for it. They still haven't done it. Feels like that just got swept under the rug, and they're just going to be like, well, we'll just get to the wedding next week and we'll move on.
I don't. They did talk about the big bachelor party a few weeks ago and said
it was months ago. It was when Miro came in. It was like, I'm going to throw you this big bachelor party, and then
I thought they named a date for it as on one of the shows. It wasn't for Beach Bash. The bachelor party isn't going to be at Beach Bash.
Well, why would you have your bachelor party the night of your wedding?
Yeah, I feel like maybe the night of the wedding has been changed to being Beach Bash now, and we're just not doing the bachelor party. I feel like that was the initial announcement, was we're going to do the bachelor party at Beach Bash.
I think the wedding was always Beach Bash.
Okay.
And then it was just, everything just kept being pushed. It was like, we're going to have the bachelor party, but the announcement's coming in a few weeks. And then that got announced to, no, it's going to be the wedding announcement in a few weeks. And then, okay, now the wedding's at Beach Bash. Okay, but when are we going to have the bachelor party? Okay, well, now we got Chuck's going to be his slave. What does that have to do with the bachelor party? I'm just kind of lost in the bigger story here. That's all.
You're not the only one. we saw the part where Miro he forces Charles to look at Orange Cassidy out in the crowd and tell him, "You're no longer his best friend. You are Miro's best friend now." And he says this right there, live in the ring in front of everybody. And then hands the mic to Chuck, who says, "No, I'm not going to do it. No, I'm not going to do it. I don't mean it. I don't want to do it." Shaking his head at Orange. And then Miro makes him because he just has to. So he says it. And Orange looks forlorn and walks away while commentary tries to sell. Like, oh no, his best friend, and he had to just tell him this like it's real. And JR, I guess credit to him that he didn't just completely break kayfabe, because JR was losing his shit. Like, he did not like it. Yeah. He's saying repeatedly, "This doesn't make any sense. This doesn't make any, it didn't make any sense. Why would Orange act like that was like that? Under no circumstance did that make storyline whatever. Orange should have been like enraged that they're doing this to him right in front of his face and whatever. He should have wanted to jump in and rush Miro and had to be blocked off by security or stopped by Kip or something. Yeah, Kip and Chuck maybe happen to stop him and hold him back. That might have been good progression in something. This was really, really silly. It makes the whole thing, again, it cheapens, it weakens what hasn't been strong already, but it makes Orange look silly, and the whole thing just look a bit silly. And I don't really.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're never
going to get one thing with his character being what it is, but it's not supposed to be stupid, right?
Well, and again, you're not going to get the angry side out of Orange. Orange barely got angry at Chris Jericho. I mean, that was the most angry we've ever seen out of Orange Cassidy. That's not the character, and that shouldn't be the response you're trying to get. Again, if you're going to try to elicit a bit of sadness or upsetness for his friend being put through something, being told that he's someone else's best friend isn't necessarily the way of going about that. I think there's other ways of utilizing Chuck in a comedy sense that they could have been doing. I don't know. I had far different expectations for Miro and Chuck and everything in this sort of situation. That again, if Nyla Rose hadn't been put in that other situation, none of these people would have been featured tonight. So where the fuck would any of this have been on the card? It would have been in the backstage segment, and then we would have had Beach Bash in 2 weeks. Then I would have been even more fucking lost, or would we have been better off? I don't know. It's a very muddled storyline that I try to have some confidence in, but it's something that I feel when they do so well with some other stuff, some things do get a little bit more swept at this point, and Miro definitely is starting to feel swept.
Yeah.
And as much as you feel like, I never have the confidence that you have where it's going to be that Miro's going to have this big, he's going to steal Penelope at the wedding. Like, I honestly think the wedding's just going to happen and we're going to just move on. Like, that's the way I see it.
It's starting to feel like that. Yeah. Might be the case. Like,
it's starting to,
how can you ever have a wrestling wedding that just is the wedding and that's it? But yeah, I know, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know where, because it feels so weird. Right, a lot of where we've given credit to AEW in the past has been because they've given guys their creative freedom to do their ideas and run with some of their planning and stuff.
Yeah.
These have all been Miro's ideas and plans. I'm starting to understand why they told him to shut the fuck up at WWF creative, right? And maybe this is why Lana's not allowed to share her idea. Like, you guys don't have great ideas.
Right? Yeah.
Coherent. So
no, I don't know who is the one in charge of the parts of this, but it's not working for me. I don't know who it's working for, other people or whatever, but I thought it would be a good matchup too between a pairing as far as like characters go with the best friends in Orange and Miro and Kip and stuff. But it's just been, I don't know if it's going too long, or again the sort of stories that start and then stop and don't really go anywhere. The bachelor party or the beatdowns, the stuff with Trent getting injured, unfortunate circumstances with some of it, but maybe we just need to get to an ending. It feels like one of those kind of stories.
It's lacking that actual interest, right? Like I get last week's thing where we had the match with something on the line with it being the young boy thing. That was something to hang on to with it and latch into. There was some interest in that angle. Yeah. Aside from that, it's been about a Smash video game machine, and this is a sidebar story to a side story.
Yeah.
So
that was all supposed to be establishing this new character and this new dominant best man role or whatever, and I feel like we've gotten further and further from the plot. So I'm ready to get to see what this final ending that whoever had planned.
Have they even referred to him as the best man in the last little while? Or I think they might have mentioned him being the best man for the wedding tonight, but they're not. They
It's
haven't
still,
really lent into this whole no, he is just the best man thing. That's kind of gone by the wayside too, right?
yeah, I don't know if whose idea it was in the first place, or where that sort of has fallen as well. It's still part of his entrance, and it's part of
Yeah,
his
yeah, yeah.
song and all that kind of stuff. But again, it doesn't feel like as much part of the character. I would agree there for sure.
Then we got the appearance of two guys I thought we were going to see earlier in the night. As soon as Private Party were having a match, and tonight I'm like, oh, here we go. This is where we're getting our Impact guys. Obviously, the Good Boys are going to come out and take in these guys because they're challenging them for their belts. But no, Good Brothers appear here with Kenny, and they're attacking Penta backstage. Wrecking
Yes.
him, I guess, because of what had happened a couple weeks ago.
Yes, during the beatdowns, or when they got their comeuppance, I guess, last week, when they came out to take out Kenny and the Good Brothers, and to sort of defend John Moxley and stuff like that. Obviously, getting a bit of repercussions here on Penta L0M from the Good Brothers and Kenny Omega. And then we got announced in the main event that at Beach Break, it will be, since Penta has now been sort of put out of action or whichever due to this beatdown, John Moxley will be teaming with the other two Death Triangle members, Pac and Phoenix, to take on the Good Brothers from Impact Wrestling and Kenny Omega. So kind of the matchup we just got, or the team we just saw at Hard to Kill, but now on the AEW side of things, taking on a AEW team. So really, really excited for that match.
I do wish someone would give Kenny and the Good Brothers the memo that trying to gouge out someone's eye was so 2020. This is 2021. It's a new year, boys. Let's attack something else now. Leave the eyes alone for a year, please.
Well, as we discussed today, and a lot of these things happen off air, but we learned that lucha masks hold eyes in. So Penta's
That's
fine.
right. He'll be fine. He'll be fine.
He will be absolutely fine. But moving on to our main event, we had the Inner Circle not imploding, but sort of working their problems out as they decide who is the top tag team, as they sort of split off into factions here. MJF teaming with Chris Jericho, taking on Santana and Ortiz, the Proud and Powerful, taking on Sammy Hagar.
And was this your biggest pop of the night? I predicted it would be.
Absolutely was my biggest pop of the night. Where I don't know who paid for this cameo or how much he costs on cameo, but they got a little clip of Sammy Hagar putting over his new favorite tag team, Sammy Hagar.
For $500, Tony Khan paid for it. And the second question, what is $5,000 for a cameo from Sammy Hagar?
Yeah, because it's just like anytime you see people when they're just in that little sized window now, I question it all the time. If they're cropping out the cameo, then, it's because it's just like that platform. You can get people to just say whatever the fuck you want. So he has no idea what tag teams or Sammy Hagar are or whatever. So, but pop me nonetheless. Great to hear from Sammy. Glad he enjoys Sammy Hagar as much as I do. And they were actually a decent tag team, as much as I'm not a huge Sammy Hagar fan. I thought they did a great. I do always enjoy the big guy, small guy aspect of a tag team. So I think they play
when it works. When it works, when you get that perfect, when you get good chemistry with two guys doing it right, it works really well. And these are two guys it did work well with. Sammy's got speed. He's smaller. He's got more technical side. That skilled and the high flying kind of flashy aspect to it. Hager is a no flash, no nonsense, big bruiser, just throw punches, big suplexes and kicky stuff, right? I think they're a good tag team to go forward with. Santana and Ortiz have always been one of my favorite tag teams. They're an excellent combo. They just look like a team, and they are really good fucking workers and put on great matches. And then you had Jericho and MJF together. Who you had to figure were the favorites, are probably going to be the team that won, but you were really like, wow, which one of these guys should win? And to me, for my money, Sammy came out of this looking best tonight.
Yeah, no, he had a lot of really great moments with Jericho early on, and with Santana and Ortiz as well, and then Hager getting his spots in the kind of story of MJF, trying to always maybe kind of get a tag, but not really actually wanting to participate, kind of making Jericho do all the work for their team in this particular matchup as well. So great little small things happening there in the matchup as well. When they tried to utilize weapons and other stuff, help from Wardlow, Hager was right there paying attention to it and catching them with all those kind of things as well. So no, a real fun main event from the Inner Circle.
I honestly do question on the winning side though. Like, what do Santana and Ortiz do if they're not the tag team from the inner circle going for the belts? I really started to feel like they should have won this match and should be the winners of it, just to establish them in that role. Even if you're not going to give them the straps, let's see them be the one, because they are the tag team. Surely you're going to keep them as a tag team. You're not going to have them working as singles guys in the ranks.
Yeah.
So you're really crippling their momentum and everything to have them lose this one. But I hope they're going to bounce back for that.
Yeah, I got to really hope that was the intent too for the story going forward, that maybe they do see some, again, if that's part of why they want to break free from the inner circle, because they aren't seen as important as they are. If that is the story going forward, it makes more sense that they weren't the one to win. If again, the focus will be maybe on Jericho and MJF more, so they feel more slighted by that and wanting to prove something more so to themselves and to the fans that, who the real best tag team actually is in this kind of situation. So I feel like again, there's more story at play if the other guys win, but I do agree with what you're saying, where I kind of wanted them to really get the dominance established here too.
I mean, it could well just be playing into now MJF's got something extra to feed that feed the fire with saying to them exactly that. Like, I thought you boys should have been the ones. If I were the leader of this team, you would be my tag team all the time.
Yeah,
I'd only want you guys.
I didn't even want to do this. Yeah,
and you'd have that goal too, because I'd be the leader and I'd make sure you guys are the champ. And maybe that is when they get the belts. Maybe that's how they do it.
Yeah, for sure. Or trios titles. He wants the three of them to split off. There's all kinds of ways you want to go about it when the time comes. But I feel like, again, this at least adds more fuel to that fire rather than sort of settling things with Ortiz and Santana moving forward. But again, that's hopes that they do move forward with something. I hope it isn't just them accepting it and moving forward as well. Okay, I guess these are the new tag guys. Now we just hang around. I'd like this. They're a really great tag team, so I'd like to see something fun out of this story.
Yeah. I thought Sammy looked just awesome. My only complaint at the very end of the show was, why the fuck did JR have to sound so confused? And I get the feeling that he's trying to throw it back to that Raw Attitude-esque era, trying to invoke some excitement of general chaos and, ooh, what's going on? But he sounds like a confused old man saying, what's happening here? Does anybody understand what? Yes, JR, the match ended and now the show's over.
Did it feel like...
What do you mean? What is even confusing you?
It felt to me like they were, I'm going to say maybe it was just JR's confusion leading into that too. It felt like they had got rushed all of a sudden after the finish to be like, oh shit, like we're right on time here. And there wasn't like a celebration or any sort of stuff. So the commentators were having to sort of get their shit in real quick. He was like cutting to the promo for what was next on TNT, like right away as they were bringing up the text, and everything felt very like on the moment. Again, I don't know if that was pre-planned, but if it was very perfect to happen right at that finish. It felt to me more like oh shit, we just got this fucking finish in. Aubrey just told them to get that pin, and we got to roll out of here in like 2 seconds, get your shit in on the mics. And that just adds to JR being like, what the fuck's going on?
Maybe that's what it was. It was Khan in one ear, somebody in the other one, and that's who he was talking.
And he's just like, shut the fuck up and let me do my job.
I'm trying to throw to go big and talk about the Snoop.
Damn it. Who won this match? What the fuck's happening? But anyway, hopefully things are a little bit more calmer for JR and they can get things back on track next week. But I think that wraps things up for this blow by blow of AEW Dynamite. You have anything else to say about this one?
No, I thought it was a really good show considering what it was. A reset from last week and start fresh on a couple things going forward. Yeah,
I think it builds just enough intrigue for some of your like bigger talent guys, obviously like your Kennys, your Young Bucks and stuff like that for next week, and then leading into Beach Bash in 2 weeks. So I think a nice sort of that mid-range reset mode right before you head into something else really big down the road. So not a bad
super quick. Who's going to be on Impact from AEW next week?
Who's going to be on Impact from AEW next week? I'm thinking probably still just Private Party. Maybe somebody else. What's your prediction? I'm going with Private Party. I'll be not too crazy.
I'm going to say Britt Baker.
Ooh.
Who comes from Impact to AEW next week?
Oh, well, that one for me is always going to be Fire and Flame, or whichever they're calling them now, like Tesha Steele and Kira Hogan. They
Until
are
they
for
come.
sure the next one's coming over. At least the ones I want to see, I think, as far as the most sort of appeal right now at Impact. Other than maybe like a Ken Shamrock showing up, like that'd be kind of nuts, like to go against like Archer or something. I don't know where you would put him against, but
I'm gonna say Sami Callihan. It's too
Ooh.
soon for Rich Swann.
Yeah, Callahan just coming off that loss too. He's at a perfect time now to start popping up into something. And if
he's the right level of name to come from there and still be on a right bracket in AEW, right? Yeah. I think anyway.
No, I think that's not a bad shout at all to see Sami Callihan potentially getting on his phone and showing up on AEW.
He might just hack it. Yeah, exactly. He might not appear. He might just hack his way onto the broadcast.
There's all kinds of ways that Sami could appear, but no, not some bad predictions. We'll see those things play out as this fun relationship between AEW and Impact continues, and all these weird crossovers happen, and we get excited in the wrestling world. But yeah, I think that wraps things up for our blow by blow. Where can people hear us, Chris?
You can hear us every Wednesday night, 88.7 FM, The River, local radio at its best. If you live in Ontario, if you don't live in Ontario, check it online, 887theriver.ca, or you can also listen to this audio version of this podcast. Comes out from Sounder FM, sounder.com. You're going to have to chop this a little bit. Sounder.com.
I'm leaving it all in. Sorry, bud.
He goes on podcasts. Look it up.
Yes, all the podcast platforms from Sounder out there into the world. If you're here on YouTube, thank you for watching. You can like this video. You can subscribe to the channel, and new videos will be popping up every week. You can hit the little bell. It lets you know exactly when those new videos come up. And get into the comments. Let us know what you thought about this AEW Dynamite and our blow by blow. And we'll be back next week for more fun here on Low Blow Radio Podcast.
Adios, amigos.